There are, of course, a million ways to process your raw photos and myriad combinations of apps we can use. The solutions we photographers arrive at are driven by many things: price, features, operating system, camera platform, photographic style, and most importantly, personal taste. I've had quite a few questions on this channel about my workflow, and I thought it'd make a cool video explaining what I currently use as of April 2024 on a daily basis. So I'm not suggesting that my solution is some god-tier perfect setup that works for everyone. What I am saying is that after 4 decades of photography, a couple of decades of raw photo processing, and using my autistic hustle to obsessively test and cross-reference all the different apps, plugins and scripts I could lay my bloody hands on, this is the best workflow I personally have ever used. When we talk about workflow, we're talking about everything that happens to a photo once it's been taken. And it begins, of course, with getting the photos off the bloody SD card and into the computer. Early on, I got frustrated with moving photos off SD cards and onto hard drives on my Mac, particularly when I might be importing photos and videos from 4 or more different devices. After some investigation, I chanced upon an app called Hazel by Paul Kim. This is a Mac-only app, but there are similar window apps, such as Batch Photo, which I previously reviewed on this channel. The big attraction with Hazel, however, is it can perform file and folder actions on my photos and videos as they are being imported. It can generate folders for me, named based on a template of my choosing, and it can then move files to that folder. It can move my photos to different locations based on a combination of conditions such as extension type, date created, size, or 20 other options. So I have it set up such that my Fujifilm X-T4's raw photos get moved to a folder based on a day, month, year format, and then put in a subfolder inside there called RAWs. Then it moves my drone photos to another subfolder called Drone RAWs, and my Sony ZV-1 photos to a folder called Sony inside that same day, month, year folder that was made for the X-T4. If I've been shooting video, that gets placed in a subfolder in that date stamp folder too. All of this happens seamlessly and invisibly to me. All I have to do, now that it's all set up, is stick the SD card in the side of the MacBook and the files get ingested. Incidentally, the same script also copies all the raw photos to a directory on my NAS drive, so I have instant backups. This is the kind of frictionless setup that I love. So the photos are now on my main photo hard drive, and it's time to move on to the second app in my workflow. It probably won't come as a surprise to anyone when I reveal that it's Lightroom Classic. Lightroom is where I manage my photos and where I do a lot, but not all, of my processing. I used to use other apps to process my raw photos outside of Lightroom a lot more than I do now, for the simple reason that Lightroom's pre- and post-processing capabilities have continued to improve over time. Lightroom serves as my main archival system, but it also runs automatic actions that I would otherwise have to do manually, and it therefore saves me time. To add my new photos to my Lightroom archive, I go to the import dialog and browse to the new folder. I import the photos using the add option rather than copy or move. This is because Hazel has already moved the files to my hard drive and I don't need to use the painfully slow import in Lightroom. Typically speaking, Lightroom will add a shoot of about 300 photos in under a minute, and then another couple of minutes rendering previews on my M2 MacBook Pro. In Lightroom, I have my personal metadata settings selected, which adds my copyright information automatically to each photo. Since I sell my photographs to local businesses and to tourist agencies, it's important to have that metadata in the file in case of any copyright dramas. If I'm importing my X-T4's raw photos, I also select my own hand-tuned develop settings. My develop settings do quite a few baseline jobs, including selecting my favorite camera profile. Since I shoot with a Fujifilm camera, I can use native film simulations, and the one I use 99% of the time is Velvia. So the import develop setting changes the profile from the default Adobe one to the Fuji Velvia one. Next, the same develop settings creates a couple of adaptive AI-based masks, one for the sky and then an inverted one for the land. Finally, it sets the basic calibration. So now all of my photos have been added to my Lightroom catalog with my baseline develop settings and my personal metadata. The next stage is to work through the photos, rating them and deciding which ones are worth post-processing. I use the Auto Advance feature to quickly step through my shots, and I flag those photos I think are worth spending some time with processing them. Usually I end up with about 20 shots that I'm happy with from a shoot of between 100 and 300. I use the P button in Lightroom to flag a photo as a pic, and then when I'm done, I change the filtering view to just show those pics so I can get an overview of my favorites. Depending on the shots, I may now use the third app in the process, DxO Pure Raw. If I think the Lightroom demosaicing is looking a bit off, or if there is noise or some camera or lens distortion, then I convert the shot to a DNG using DxO Pure Raw 4. Occasionally I send all of my shortlisted photos through Pure Raw, and I then edit the Pure Raw process DNG as I would the original X-T4 RAW file. If I've got a stack, Pano, HDR or Focus, then there's obviously some extra work to do to combine the files. For HDR shots, I pretty much exclusively use Lightroom Classic these days. I have of course experimented with other HDR apps such as HDR FX by DxO from the Nik collection, but these days I rarely have anything to complain about with Lightroom's results. For Pano shots, I use Lightroom until such time as it can't cope and fails to include all of the images, and then I use PT GUI. I find Lightroom chokes most often on panos shot with my drone at the coast because it can't align the ocean due to a lack of easily identifiable features. PT GUI often fails to automatically align those shots too, but I can manually add control points, which gets the job done. That said, the reason I still favour Lightroom over PT GUI is because of the boundary warp option, which seamlessly fills in the empty edges of the Pano frame. For focus stacking, I find Lightroom works fine, but if I ever have a weird blend, I'll create the stack in Photoshop instead. This combination of apps is designed to do two things for me. It gets the photos off the camera and onto my Mac with the minimum intervention on my part, and then it sets up the file so all that's left to do is make some processing decisions. Furthermore, going through the photos and picking out only the best shots means I spend less time pushing sliders around in Lightroom. The apps I use ensure I get the very best outcome for my RAW files, enabling me to leverage all of the data in that RAW file and end up with the best possible result from that individual photo. And that, my photographer friends, is my photographic workflow. Though, of course, like everyone else's, it's always a work in progress. What apps do you favour for your workflow? Let me know in the comments section down below. And if you got value from this content, then please do give it a like and consider subscribing to my channel for more photo, video and drone related content from me. Till the next time, guys. Ta-ta.